My buddy Tom Skerritt got drafted in the service in '42, and he didn't know how to go to Pittsburgh. And I took him to Pittsburgh on a trolley. And then I enlisted in the Air Force, and they took me the same day I enlisted. I called home, told my dad and them I was going to the Army.
I was in the Navy during the Korean conflict. I joined the Navy in 1950.
I was in the Merchant Marine, and I sailed, the first ship I sailed was an old Hog Islander.
And I told my brother Bill I was leaving from the Pennsylvania station. He brought my mother and my dad, and they came down to see me off. And here they go to the Pennsylvania station, and there's no soldiers leaving there. And they found out it was Lake Erie, and he came and he chewed me out. Said, I said, I don't know where I'm going. So I enlisted in the service in '42. Then I got
served my boot camp at Great Lake, Illinois from September until December, and we were shipped out to California, Treasure Island. And then I was processed there and then shipped to Sasebo, to Tokyo, Japan. And from there I took a train to Sasebo, Japan to meet my ship, which was the ARH-1 USS Jason.
Well, I spent all my time in the United States. I was lucky. I went to Fort Meade for my boot training. Didn't have much of training in, and went to Wright Field. That was my headquarters in Dayton, Ohio. And I sent me to North American factory up in Kansas. I became a B-25 crew chief. And they said, see that plane out there? And I know it was 609 was the airplane number. Said, wherever that plane goes, you go with it. So I was lucky. It went to Dayton, Ohio, Wright Field. Then from there, I flew all over the United States in that airplane. We used it for an experimental purpose. We had rockets on the wings, and we had big bombs.
I was a fireman, and I was shoveling coal to build up the steam engine. And we went to Cuba, and our steering mechanism broke, and we were on a 48-hour alert because there was a submarine in the waters where our ship was, but we got out of there safe enough. Then I got on a ship in New York, and we were at the Battle of the, I can't think of it, in Naples, Italy. We were in Naples, Italy.
Oh. Sicily invasion.
Yeah, the invasion of the big invasion over there.
D-Day.
I was in a convoy of ships, and before that, I was on a ship. We were in a convoy, and somehow or other we got waylaid, and we ended up in Sardinia, Italy, and we were in the middle of the Navy fleet, and they moved us into Sardinia, Italy, out of the Navy fleet, and we were there in port for 2 weeks, and we just had a ball.
Bombs in the Palm Bay. We used to drop these bombs in the desert down in Florida and out in California. Eglinville, Florida, and Muroc Lake, California. I think that's Air Force. They call it Edwards Air Force now. So these bombs we used to drop, they used to build big bonfires out in the desert. Then I had these scientists and that riding in the airplane with me, and they'll drop this bomb. Now watch it. Back then we had the television in there, and we watch it go. It was a radar television, and we watch it fly through the air. Then they'll find out how much of a degree that would miss the target. So then they will go back to the air base again. They'll readjust the mechanism on the nose of the airplane, maybe so many degrees to the left, so many degrees. Then we'll go back up the next day, with the weather permitting, and we'll drop a bomb again. And so that's how we perfected it. Then we sent fighter planes over to Italy, Germany, and had to drop over there. And they said they worked in Quebec, and they tried to the rockets, and they tried the bulbs. They said when they came back, they said they worked perfect. So we lucked out pretty good on that. Then I used to have captains, lieutenants, majors, colonels, generals, all up fly that B-20,000. I rode with them all. We rode to Washington, D.C., and there was a short runway. This major was pilot. They come in, they dropped the plane. The plane caught on fire, blew out the wheel, buckled the airplane all up, and I had a captain that just got back from combat duty, Captain Russell. He said, he put his arm around me, he said, Sam, if I would have done that, they would have busted me and kicked me out of the Army. Major, about a month later, the major got a promotion to the colonel. And he asked me, he said, what happened? I said, well, Major, you lost your attitude. You probably pulled back your throttle. See, he cut his plow on that because he misjudged your approach. And you don't have so much room to land your airplane. We would have went in the lake and the river there, so he had to make sure he get down. So I had a couple close calls with him, and otherwise we survived.
So with the auxiliary hull repair, which tied up a dock, and if a ship of the size of ours, which was about 536 feet long, or smaller was damaged, like destroyer tender, they pull up alongside and we repair them, regardless of what problem they had other than a major hull repair. And we would go up to the war zone every month, stay there at the end of the month until the beginning of the next month, mainly because the Commodore on our ship wanted to get out of paying income tax. When you were in the war zone during that time, after World War II, you didn't have to pay income tax. But our major conflict was we were during the Incheon invasion of Korea. We were there. We fired our guns, but only for beach support. Then we backed off and we took care of any ship that might have been damaged or they needed help. We spent most of our time in Sasebo, Japan, and then Yokosuka, Japan.
And I was with four other men, 3 from Washington and 1 from Houston, PA, and we all became very good friends. And we all got the same tattoo on our arms. And I've had some close calls. We were in Naples, Italy, and we were being scraped by the German Air Force. And I ran through the hallway trying to knock out the lights, and they had steel covers on them, and I'm hit with my fist till I woke up and realized that can't knock the lights out. I had to close the porthole doors, and we, like I said, we ended up sailing several different types of ships. I must have sailed 13 different types of ships.
What did you haul?
Pardon?
What did you carry?
We hauled, mostly we hauled tanks and all war supplies. Then the last 3 years I sailed T2 tankers, and we hauled high octane gasoline. And we were on, I know I was on a ship, a tanker. We went through the Suez, we went through the Panama Canal. We were on our way to the Japanese theater of war we had a full load of high octane gas. And I was the chief pumpman on this tanker. In fact, I was in charge of loading and unloading the tanker. And when we got out of the Panama Canal, on our way down into the Pacific Theater, the Japanese surrendered. So then we were told, I dumped, I don't know how many gallons of high octane gasoline. We unloaded the ship right into the ocean. We got rid of all the high octane. Then we had to ballast the ship we just pumped in water from the ocean, and we sailed back to New York. But that was when Japan surrendered. Then I came home. I guess I was home for 2 or 3 months, and then I went back in. Then I finally quit sailing Father's Day of 1951.
So total, how many years were you in it?
I was in off and on 8 years, from August of 43 to Father's Day of 1951.
And what do you have to do with it now? Aren't you affiliated with it?
Well, no, all we did, I formed a Merchant Marine Veterans Organization in July of 1995. I was the first president for the first 3 years. I'm just now a assistant news editor, and I'm in charge of the advertisers of our newsletter. I'm also vice commander of the American Legion Post 760 in Bethel Park. I'm a member of the American Legion. Sam's also a member of the American Legion in Washington.
Then I got out, and I was in 42, and then I got out in February of 46. I spent 46 months in the service. Then I had to get out of there, and then I met my honey here, and then I was the only one in the family get married in the Catholic Church. She was Catholic, and she said, "You go marry me, you had to change." And there wasn't no argument, because I wanted her for my wife, and so I changed and became a Catholic, and I'm not sorry I did.
And I came back to California with discharge, 54. And I worked in California for a while for a furnace cleaning company. And a friend of mine and we decided to come back home. So I drove back home and met Aunt Eve again. And then we got married. Got engaged and got married.
So you knew her before the service?
I met her in 1950. I met her in 1950. Probably was March of 1950. Our first date was April Fool's Day. And I called her up for a date on April 1st of 1950. And she thought that I was playing an April Fool's joke, but she was ready to go. But I dropped it. But then we dated up until September of 1950 when I went to the service. And then we communicated a little, and then off and on. And